Dorian appeared overnight, as if the world had birthed him anew. His small, pale body sprawled face first against the cemetery gates, untouched by injury. No pulse, no signs of struggle, and no records of anyone missing fitting his description. No identification could be found on Dorian, his presence as puzzling as his body. Dorian was the name our city's coroner, who also happens to be my children's father, gave him. A nickname that stuck, despite its crude humor. Vincent is tough, resilient in the face of death, his emotional armor forged through years of autopsies and tragic encounters. But when something shakes him, he often retreats into humor, deflecting fear with ridiculous jokes, as he did the night he brought up Dorian. Truthfully, it's a little bit of a hint. As a general rule, he avoids using gallows humor. I could tell something was wrong with him when he came home that night and started making jokes about Dorian. At first, I was more concerned about Paige's progress than I was with pressing him on the matter. My daughter found Dorian, you know. From her bedroom window, she could observe him leaning against the dark steel bars as the sun rose above the horizon. She felt perfectly fine, it turned out. Seems more interested than troubled. I guess it shouldn't have been shocking now that I think about it. Far in advance of her expected time, Paige got a crash course on dying. Living next to a cemetery, with your parents both employed by the county coroner, makes it difficult to tread delicately around taboo topics. Paige assured me that she would tell me or Dad if she felt uncomfortable about anything, but she didn't think it would come to that with Pippin there. Death would be thwarted by our faithful saint, Bernard, as it always is. Following Paige's bedtime that night, Vincent spoke up without my prodding, bolstered by a couple of generously served glasses of wine. While leaning back in the porch chair and staring at the stars, he made the comment, "Whoever he was, he took superb care of himself." I glanced at him, perplexed, as I leaned in the front doorway. Then what? His delightful roundness is the punchline, isn't it? Feeling unfit? Does he have that commercial-like belly laugh when you poke him? He managed to elicit a weak laugh. No, I feel you. A diplomatic way of putting it would be to say that Dorian is delightfully rotund. That's the strangest part, I suppose. You'd think his insides would match his outsides in terms of unhealthy appearance, except for one organ, which was perfect. New from the factory. It was as if he had sprung straight out of an anatomy book. I couldn't even begin to guess what killed him. I couldn't find anything wrong with him. He rose from his seat, and the legs of the chair scraped against the porch. With his head buried in his hands, he strode forward, placing his elbows on the railing. Dorian chatters, and he doesn't giggle. The faint clicking echoed in the morgue. It came once, then again 30 minutes later, followed by more, a strange, unsettling rhythm, persistent and unyielding. I told myself it was just a spasm, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Vincent had previously pierced the ribs and extracted the heart. The brief, barely audible clicking was brief. It occurred once more 30 minutes after that. Then 10 minutes later, once more, and thereafter, indefinitely. In order to finish the procedure without having a panic attack, he had to tell himself it was a sequence of unusual spasms involving the cadaver. However, no dead body had ever done that previously. His 30 years of experience told him otherwise. He felt a mix of relief and sadness as he placed Dorian into the morgue's refrigerated cabinet, his temporary resting place. Because of the metal casket, no one could hear him clench his teeth from time to time. Vincent contemplated slipping open the door and eavesdropping. He ultimately opted not to do it. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, we prayed for word of an update. Within the police department, Vincent had numerous confidential contacts. Although the news did mention the case, it failed to provide any new information. Regrettably, the inquiry into the identity of Dorian did not progress rapidly. I was left with more questions than answers after following the first and only lead, which was completely fruitless. About 20 minutes prior to Paige summoning me to her room, TVs from nearby businesses showed Dorian emerging from an alleyway. Despite his small stature, he is sprinting with extraordinary speed. An emaciated cheetah. He also didn't look back as if someone were chasing him. The cemetery was his recent beeline. A man with a purpose. But here's the thing that made everyone wonder. There's no footage of Dorian entering from the other side of the heavily surveilled alleyway he came from. Also, the walls of that cramped hallway were devoid of windows. The sole plausible theory put forward was that Dorian escaped through a sewer grate that was situated in the alleyway, covered up. Nobody was a fan of that justification. According to Vincent, he also didn't smell bad when he got there. The smell of the corpse was completely gone from his memory. The police searched the tunnels under that alley extensively, but they found only one strange anomaly. Not a single soul could decipher it. Beyond that, its relationship to Dorian remained uncertain. It was just as out of the ordinary as he was, but that was about it. Just 20 yards away from the sewer grate where Dorian supposedly materialized was a red chalk circle containing a neat stack of 100 empty sunflower seed packets. Dorian faded from memory after a few years, a narrative conveyed to captivate rapt diners in a theatrical but subdued tone. Nothing less than that. I had to deal with his uncanniness until last month. Someone called me. Time had expired on Dorian's clock. The morgue had to be emptied of him. His burial had come. In the past, the state would pay to bury the unclaimed dead in a special plot of land known as a potter's field. Where the term came from is a mystery to me. Please do not take offense at that. Without a doubt, it is a biblical allusion. What happens after that is anybody's guess. It was really just a mass grave that had a prettier name. These days, the majority of cities no longer do that. An inexpensive alternative to a pine box is cremation. My hometown is one of the last places that uses potter's fields. Our community's high percentage of Greek Orthodox members is likely the reason we have resisted that change, if I had to guess. As a Christian religion, it is unique among those that have not yet come to terms with cremation. I made sure that our old friend Dorian had the best pine boxes by acquiring only the finest. We laid him to rest in an unmarked grave less than 48 hours after he died. Vincent wanted to know if I could make out any noise, so I looked around. Lucky for me, I didn't. Approximately 1 month passed with no news. After that, strays began to show up. The number was initially quite small. A severely underweight dog over there and a cat with a slovenly appearance over here. They seemed to be lost as they aimlessly roamed the cemetery, but eventually, they would find their way to the foot of Dorian's grave. I didn't think much of it because, although it was an odd nuisance, our city is teeming with strays. I'm at a loss to describe the allure of the spot where Dorian was laid to rest. As best I could, I made sense of the phenomenon and proceeded with my life. Tensions rose. It wasn't long before the grounds were invaded by more than just a handful of wandering animals. A group of animals united in their mission to find Dorian eventually formed. Bats, raccoons, dogs, cats, and foxes formed an unlikely alliance to accomplish a seemingly impossible mission. Pippin, who had never done so before, joined the cause as well, foregoing his training and venturing out into the backyard at night. Our groundskeeper, Mr. Caldwell, was completely unprepared for the assault. To disperse the animals, he would blare his whistle and visit Dorian's grave several times a day. Ultimately, we enlisted the help of his nephew to cover the same shift during the night. The whistle stopped working 2 days ago, so we had no choice but to contact animal control. The strays continued digging without paying it any mind. Mr. Caldwell stormed into the house yesterday morning, panting like a baby and covered in perspiration. He pleaded with me to come with him. It was imperative that I witness something firsthand. We were getting close to Dorian's grave, and I still didn't fully understand what I was seeing. Looking at it from the front, it looked like a spud, a reddish-blue spud sticking its head out of the dirt. Numerous ridges and nearly vascular-looking tubes snaked and twisted under the violaceous peel as the growth approached its apex. Additional bite marks were also visible to me. Through squinting, I made out something else. Extending from the length of the tuber, hundreds of extremely fine red sprigs. Fine threads that linked it to the soil around it, subtly pulsating once every few seconds. What do you think it could be? Standing before the mystifying polyp, confused but not yet frightened, I spoke to Mr. Caldwell. Moving silently to the other side of it, he then gestured towards something. I trailed after him. That was a mistake. On the underside of the expansion was a glossy, half-crescent curve glistening under the moonlight. The underside was eerily opaque, while the top had a sickly yellowish hue, as though something unnatural was taking root in the earth itself. On closer inspection, I realized the growth resembled a twisted fingernail, a jagged half-moon pressing through the dirt. Something unnatural, magical perhaps, had taken root beneath the earth, allowing Dorian's body to bloom? I struggled for the right word, but no description seemed fitting enough for what I was witnessing. A sharp whisper cut through the air, foreign, unsettling, a sound that felt less like a language and more like a call from the depths of something ancient, something alive. "There's more," Mr. Caldwell whispered, pointing. "Watch." The fingernail-like growth twitched, then curled upward. The red threads pulsed in unison, glowing with an internal light. The ground beneath us trembled with purpose. The familiar clicking sound that had haunted Vincent in the morgue suddenly erupted from beneath the soil, louder now, rhythmic. With each click, more soil collapsed inward around the emerging growth. I understood then. The animals weren't trying to reach Dorian. They were helping him reach us. Dorian had never been dead. He had been waiting, gestating, his body the seed of something our world had never seen before. As I backed away, the whisper came again, and this time, to my horror, I understood a single word: home.